how to do the opposite of that today. I'm going to show you how to give a very content-rich, zero hype, non-salesy webinar experience that leaves the audience with a greater sense of value and accomplishment than they had prior to attending. And all of that leads to repeat business, repeat attendance, and ultimately more sales. So that's what we're going to do. And of course, I'm still going to show you how to convert better and beat the pants off those other styles of webinars anyway while we're in the process. So that's a good win-win there. Also going to show you how to structure your close, what you do at the end of your webinar where you actually ask for the sale without being all salesy. I have struggled with that for many years. It would literally give me panic attacks. I became so nervous at the close of any sales presentation because it just fundamentally, I don't like to be salesy. I don't like that high pressure stuff. So if you're like that, if that kind of thing makes you uncomfortable, this webinar is really, really going to be something you're going to enjoy because I'm going to show you a 12-part systematic way to make your offer without being uncool. So it's pretty sweet. Now, I also want to take a minute to tell you why this is different. Listen, I know you've probably heard about webinars before. Obviously, there's nothing new. And I'm sure you have potentially seen presentations about how to do webinars, read articles about it, maybe even seen webinars about how to do webinars. And I want to go over some key differences between what we're doing today and what you've probably done in the past. So, first things first, what you're going to learn was born from paid advertising. That's a world where you either live or die based on being able to turn advertising into profit. Like, as you know, any monkey can make money by having their buddies send them free traffic by blasting their email list a million times to a hyped up webinar. That doesn't work in the real world. When you're paying money to put people on a webinar, it's an entirely different game. And everything you're going to see is the result of strategies applied to the real world, where we're spending significant amounts of money to get people to register from advertising and getting them to show up on webinars. So that's big differentiator number one. Big differentiator number two is this is working outside of the quote unquote internet marketing world. So when you see webinars, when you hear about webinars, it's usually by internet marketing gurus, and I'm sure they're all great folks. And basically they're saying, here's what we did to sell a whole bunch of internet marketing related stuff. Well, this is working outside of that. Obviously it's working well in that industry as well, but it's working way outside of that. So what I'm going to show you today has been used to sell across a huge range of industries, from financial services, and by financial services I mean life insurance, annuities, the recruiting of agents for field marketing organizations within financial services industries, to insurance sales itself, to the sale of actual real estate. And by the way, I mean literally actual real estate, not how-to information in real estate, but the sale of real property as a direct result of advertising webinars to potential real estate investors on Facebook, driving them to a webinar and having them buy actual property as a result of the webinar. So that's just a cross-section, a brief cross-section of the many industries that what I'm going to share with you has been used effectively in. I've even used this to profitably advertise webinars in magazines and in direct mail to completely cold prospects. So where other stuff you might learn about, hey, here's how I got a bunch of joint venture partners in the internet marketing space to send me a bunch of free traffic to a webinar that sold internet marketing stuff. This is different. This is the real world. This is going as far as even using print media to advertise in magazines and direct mail to get complete strangers to go online, attend a webinar, and do so profitably. So here's why all of this is particularly important to you right now. As you have probably noticed, most webinar stuff that we've learned is dead wrong. It might have worked a couple years ago when people were first fascinated with and new to webinars, but it doesn't work anymore. As a matter of fact, because so many webinars are occurring almost constantly in so many marketplaces, many people are starting to get immune to the classic and more traditional webinar approach. So it's very important that we fix that. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Show-up rates, as you may or may not know, are in the toilet. It used to be if you get 100 people to register for a webinar, all of them would show up. A common show-up rate is now 25 to 30% of that. I'm going to show you how to beat the ever-living pants off of that and get incredibly good show-up rates without being a nag, by the way. So that's going to be pretty fun. Um, if you sell too hard, your audience is going to be mad. But on the other hand, if you teach too much, you'll overwhelm them and you won't sell anything. So there's a new science to conducting these types of training where you're able to teach, provide value without overwhelming your audience, and simultaneously generate sales while maintaining goodwill. Sounds hard. It isn't. I'll walk you through it today. End of the line, bottom line, the game has changed. If we don't learn the new rules of it and abide by the new rules of it, we're going to be out of the game. And your competitors are going to be selling stuff on webinars, and you won't be. So that's why it's really, really important to pay attention to all of this. So you might be wondering, are you in the place? Is this for you? Well, if you're an experienced webinar pro and you want a big boost in response, this is definitely going to be for you. I'm going to show you some stuff that's working incredibly well. If you're new to webinars and you just want to jumpstart your success without kind of having that really long learning curve, if you're looking for something to model that's been working very well, then this is certainly for you, because if you've known me for a long time, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of the complicated technology stuff, and I like to take the fastest and most efficient path from point A to point B, and that's what you're going to get here today. Just so happens that that path is also extremely powerful and works very, very well. If you want to build a hot and responsive list of people who think you're awesome, then this is definitely for you, because we're going to use these webinars as a means to generate subscribers and leads, aka a list that you can continue to monetize for months on end if you do it properly. If you want to be positioned as a celebrity authority in your marketplace, this is definitely for you. If you want to be different, if you want to rise above the noise and be perceived as one of the good guys, and quite frankly, actually be one of the good guys, then this presentation is certainly for you. And if you want to deliver massive value to your audience and still sell like crazy at the same time, then that's what this is all about. So we're going to knock it out of the park on this today. Now, before we go any further, I want to establish some house rules, all right? So first of all, I refuse to do anything that panders to the get-rich-quick mentality. I have experienced a get-rich-quick moment, which was preceded by years of very, very hard work. So if you're looking for some kind of a do-nothing, get-paid, magical, formulaic, flying unicorn, golden egg system 2000.biz, what if that's a real domain? I would be embarrassed. If you're looking for that kind of thing, this is not the place for it. All right, this is real work. This is providing real value for real people. If I'm sure that you're not this, but I want to just kind of establish it anyway. This isn't for fake experts. Nothing that I can show you can overcome any lack of ability to provide value to your marketplace. There's no marketing in the world that can overcome a crappy delivery of service or product. So if you don't have your act together, I could probably help you sell some stuff, but those people are going to be mad at you and they're going to call you bad names on the internet and they're going to ask for a refund. So I can't help fake experts. You got to know what you're doing. Another thing, I just threw some pretty big numbers at you. I told you that my average webinar promotion for the past 2 years has generated over $600,000 per promotion. In total, almost $2.4 million in sales just from webinars alone. I think it should be fairly obvious, but I'll say it anyway. My results certainly are not even remotely typical. I have no idea what the average webinar person does. It is my hope that everyone would have such results. It's really, frankly, my hope that everyone would do better than I do. But I'm not even remotely going to make any sort of claim saying that you're going to make $600,000 or any amount of money per webinar that you do. Frankly, I simply don't know your business model. I don't know what you're selling. I don't know your price points. I think you get it. Fact of the matter is, it is my unsubstantiated opinion that most people who buy any type of how to make money training will not make any money whatsoever. And I believe that the same reason applies to the folks who buy the treadmill that don't lose weight as a direct result of staring at the treadmill with the dry cleaning hung over the side of it, right? I know all of this stuff is probably self-evident, but I think it's very, very important. So for everyone who is still with me, and I hope that's the majority of our viewers today, why don't we get started and get to work, all right? So first things first. If you've known me for a while, you might have something that's going on in the back of your mind saying, you know what, of course, you had these really great results on webinars because you're Frank Kern, you've got a big list, and you have a big name in the industry. Yes, this is all true. I will not try to deny it. I do have that unfair advantage. I do have a big list. I have been in this industry serving it daily for almost 15 years now, ever since October of 1999. So we're coming up on my 15th anniversary of doing this. So yeah, I have an unfair advantage. So because of that, you naturally think, my first webinars were very, very successful, especially since I first started doing them just a couple short years ago, right? I mean, yeah, big list and all. I can't help but win. I'm Frank Kern. Don't you know who I think I am? Ah, well, if only that were the case. I have just a classic tale of ineptitude and woe. So anyway, if you've been a friend of mine or a follower of mine for a long time, you'll know that the pattern of things with me is to royally screw it up and then figure out how to do it properly. And the webinar thing is absolutely no different. So when I decided to do my first webinar, I was like, you know what? I've got a big list. I have a big name in the industry. I'm going to get really rich. I'm going to do this awesome webinar. And I launched it. I did like a launch. So you're probably familiar with product launch strategies. I kind of launched a webinar. So I built up all this demand. I was like, yeah, the webinar's coming in 5 days. It's going to be live. It's going to be huge. I did it live. I paid a fortune to do it live because I had thousands of people on there. Now, if you use GoToWebinar or something, it can only hold 1,000. But man, I just knew I was going to do great. So I've spent all this money. I hired this like really fancy streaming service that could accommodate several thousand people. They were all on there. I'm doing the webinar. People are really, really enjoying it. And at the end of it, I was like, I'm definitely cannot wait to check stats because I probably have made $1 million today. Long story short, I made 7 sales. That is 7 sales out of like 3,500 something people that stayed on the entire webinar. So I was like, what in the world happened? And I tell you, there's really nothing more humbling than spectacular public failure. You know what I mean? Oh, but it doesn't end there. I did it again, thankfully on a smaller scale. I decided to try it again. I got about 1,000 people to show up this time because my first webinar, I spent way more than I made. So I was like, well, to hell with this. I'm not going to do this fancy giant webinar. I'm just going to do it smaller. And maybe there was audio problems or something, right? So I got 1,000 people to show up. Naturally, Murphy's Law, the system crashed literally in the very middle of the webinar. So I'm talking and I'm thinking everything's cool. And I get a text from a friend of mine that says, dude, your webinar's been like black screen, no audio for the past 30 minutes. I was like, great. So I looked like an idiot and I made a grand total of $0. So that was my entry into the webinar world. So if you've ever been sort of, nervous about starting in the webinar and fearful of technical things and looking stupid, I've been there, and it's not so bad. Thankfully, no one really hassled me too much about it. They just said, hey, good job with the blank space webinar there, whatever. So I was really, really, really dejected about it though, because I thought I was going to make a lot of money. I mean, you know what it's like, right? You have these big plans and you go out and you're like, yeah, this is going to be killer and I'm going to make all this money. And I'm already spending the money in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a new car. I'm going to buy my wife some jewelry and stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then you make nothing. I actually lost money from the whole thing. So I was like, what do? I had basically 2 decisions. Door number 1 was just to not mess with webinars and try something else. And there's plenty of options out there. There's, sales letters, product launches, complex funnels, and all of those things are great. And then door number 2 was to figure it out and make a lot of money in a cool way. And thankfully, I made what I now refer to as the $2 million decision. It's actually, I guess, technically like a $2.4 million and counting decision. In fact, it's really 3 decisions. First, I said, you know what, to hell with it. I'm going to figure this webinar thing out because no one has ever gotten rich by being a quitter, right? I mean, if you quit, you are guaranteed not to get results. You know what I mean? Those results are typical. Quitters typically, on average, get 0 results, right? So I knew that was not an option. I really wanted to do webinars, right? Because they're fun and they help people and it's just cool. You stay connected to people. They like it. It's like a party. So I decided to figure it out. Second thing I decided to do was I decided to just patently ignore everyone else who was selling webinar stuff. And the reason why is because they were all in the business opportunity industry that I saw. It was all like, here, buy my webinar and here's my get rich quick system. And they were all super hypey. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, technically speaking, that probably would work, but your longevity in the marketplace is going to be, a month or something because everyone's going to think you're a dick, basically, if you're just nothing but hype and, not to mention compliance and regulatory issues that are bound to crop up from when you have super hypey stuff, right? So I decided to just ignore every single other person that was selling webinar stuff and figure it out on my own. And finally, and this is really born out of embarrassment, I decided to advertise my webinars so I wouldn't be lazy and rely on my existing list. Now, I say plus, I was embarrassed by the past debacles, but quite frankly, my decision was created out of embarrassment. I was like, there's no way anyone's going to come on another webinar with me on my list because I just botched 2 of them. The first one had to be bad because no one bought anything, and the second one was clearly bad because it exploded. So I said, all right, to hell with it. I'm going to advertise these things to learn it. That way I can sort of test this out on new people and look less stupid if it doesn't work out, you know? So notice that. I said paid advertising. Now, what I like to consider as a major differentiator between myself and other folks that you might have the opportunity to learn from is I do a lot of paid advertising. Many people in the quote-unquote internet guru space, which I guess I'm kind of lumped into, they don't do paid advertising. They get all of their leads and sales by referrals and joint ventures and affiliates and all that, aka free marketing. In my opinion, the only pathway to lasting wealth and success is to have the ability to create paid advertising that turns into profit. I'll say it an easier way. The surefire path to wealth is to learn how to create, to learn how to turn advertising into profit. And that's what I did. As a matter of fact, the very first year that I really started trying to crack the code on this and I started taking webinar marketing seriously, I spent over $200,000 on webinar advertising, and I continued to perfect the system and really keep working on it. And now, like I told you earlier, I spend all the way up to about $50,000 in some months driving traffic directly to campaigns, which include webinars, and I do so at a profitable return on that advertising investment, and that profit comes within the first 30 days of placing the ads. This is the real thing. In fact, I'm happy to tell you now that I've kept track of it, and for the past 3 years running, my average webinar campaign has brought in $849,280.40 in revenue per campaign on average. And that is just for my own products, not including the webinars I have created for ancillary businesses such as the financial services companies I've mentioned, as well as the sale of actual real estate property, which is a webinar that I help create for a different client. That's just my own webinars that I've personally done for my own products and services that you're probably already familiar with. And the best part of this is all that has been generated without launches and without joint venture partners. This is all done in the real world through paid advertising. But you know what? Who cares about me, right? Let's talk about what can be done with you. So let me show you how the system works, and you can see for yourself if you want to apply it. So the thing about webinars is there are basically 5 pillars of webinar profits. Thing number 1 is something I call recon. I'm going to go kind of fast, but then I'll go through each one of these 5 pillars individually for you. Thing number 2 is the registration process itself. If you do what everyone else does, you'll get their same crappy results. So it's a little bit different than what you're probably used to seeing. Thing number 3 is something I call the authority process, which is absolutely critical. It happens before the webinar even occurs, and you got to do it if you want your conversion to be good. Thing number 4, did I just say thing 4 twice? Well, thank God there's numbers on the screen, right? Thing number 4 is the actual webinar itself, which has to be dramatically different than typical webinars that other people are doing. No one really wants to hear our stories of how we were born in a shoebox in the country and had to eat ants for dinner and finally rubbed 2 stones together to make fire and then got rich and blah, blah, blah. They want to hear stuff they can use, right? So the actual webinar is a big, big deal. It's dramatically different. I'll show you how to do it today. Thing number 5 is the after chunk, which a lot of people overlook. And maybe we'll have time to do that, maybe not. But let me at least give you definitely these first 4, because these are a big deal. So let's go. Thing number 1, recon. Here it is. Before you do a webinar, actually before you go to sell anything in the world, you need to ask these 3 questions. These are very simple, very, very important. Question numero uno is, what do they want the most? Of course, they being your prospects, right? So what do they want the most? Thing number 2, why do they want it? And thing number 3, what are their main reasons for not buying? My gosh, if you just answer thing number 3, you'll be head and shoulders above everyone else. But let's talk about all 3 of them, because none of this is particularly hard. This whole process should only take you like 30 minutes in terms of answering these questions. So here we go. Question number 1, what do they want the most? Here's the thing. Your webinar is ultimately about them and what they want. That's a huge, huge thing right there. Most people think that their webinar should be about themselves and their products and how awesome they are and how awesome their products are. Guess what? I know this to be true. Most people in this webinar don't care about me personally. They don't care about my history. They don't care about my results. The only reason, that probably even including yourself, the only reason you're listening to this is you want actionable information that you can use to improve your bottom line. That's all. Well, guess what? Your prospects are just like you. It's human nature, right? So our webinars need to ultimately be about them and what they want. Therefore, we need to answer that question because the primary answer to that question gives you the overall theme of your webinar. For example, most of my audience today wants sales and a list, right? Those are the two big things. You say, hey, what do you guys want? They say, hey, more subscribers and more sales, right? Well, that's what this webinar is about. Not about me, not about my history, not about how great I am, none of that stuff. Who cares? You don't care. You want sales on the list, right? So that's what the webinar is about. It's really important to keep that piece of information, that question, in the front of your mind all the time. But we need to go a little bit deeper and answer the other question, which is why do they want it? And you've heard the phrase features and benefits, right? Like when you're writing copy and everything. Well, the big reason why that they want whatever they want, that's going to tie in as the primary benefit of your offer. So, for example, most of my audience today, they want two things. The big reason why, that driver of why they want sales and leads, is they want freedom, right? Sales provide freedom. They provide financial freedom. If you make enough sales, you make a lot of money, you don't have to do stuff you don't want to do, right? The other end of that equation is they want certainty, and that is provided by a list. If you have a responsive list, then you know with a fair degree of certainty that you can mail your list, you can promote things to your list, and you can always make sales, right? This is classic business 101. So that is the primary emotional driver, freedom and certainty. So your prospects are going to be different. Or maybe they too want freedom and certainty. Who knows, right? I don't know what kind of business you're in. But it's important to know this stuff before you ever make a single slide, right? And finally, this is the granddaddy of them all. This is what's overlooked by everybody. Why would they say no to your offer, right? Here's the thing. This is huge. It's critical. The reason why is because most marketers, aka your competition, aka the very people that your prospects are sick of, those guys try to gloss over any objections that your customer might have. They're like, oh yeah, well, I'm just going to increase the hype, right? I'm going to increase the promises. I'm going to increase my claims, and maybe that'll just sort of outweigh the fact that these people have natural skepticisms. Dude, most of your audience will have objections and skepticism, right? You probably do too right now. There are probably questions that you want answered before you would ever consider doing any sort of business with me. Totally normal, not a big deal. There's nothing wrong with that. Your prospects are not like uncool because they have objections or questions or concerns, right? They are normal. So if you address these head on and you address them honestly, then you're going to show up in that webinar presentation like no one else in your marketplace. And as a result of that, your prospects will notice. They will say, man, this person is shooting me straight. They're not trying to blow air up my skirt or whatever the expression is. I don't think that's a real expression, but we'll use that anyway. Bottom line is your trust, your desire, and your sales will increase by doing this. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this here on this presentation, by the way. This is a big, big deal. So let's talk about the next pillar, right, which is getting registrants. So, of course, you can't have a webinar without attendees, and you can't have attendees without registrants, right? So getting registrants is a big deal. What I want to share with you today is that you can get free registrations. And I don't mean affiliates. I don't mean weird SEO, spammy, traffic, hacky stuff, right? That's amateur. I want to talk to you about the real business methodology here. If you sell something immediately after registration, if you do it properly, it will have no effect on your webinar sales. Now, I've heard it a million times. People are like, no, you can't sell anything before the webinar because then it will cannibalize your webinar sales. People will get pissed off, right? Well, if you do it wrong, that's true. But if you do it right, you can actually make a profit before you even have the webinar. So let me tell you how to do that, all right? So the thing that you sell, this is a real big deal. The thing that you sell must not compete with whatever it is you're selling on your webinar, right? It has to complement it. It needs to be sort of a quick fix that thematically complements the overall thing that you're offering on your webinar. So if you do this right, you will make sales before the webinar occurs, therefore making more money than you spend on advertising, therefore you get a list for free. I have done this personally repeatedly. I've never seen anyone else do it. I don't know why they don't do it. They should, and I'm going to show you how to do it so that you will have this occur, because I would just be delighted if you were turning a profit before your webinar even happened. We would all be getting along great. So let me show you an example, and then maybe you can model this approach, right? I love to teach by example. So in the last year, I generated 100,000, that's a little more, like 101 or something, by offering a product called Video Black Box immediately after people registered for my webinar. The thing that I was selling on the webinar was a class about consulting. So Video Black Box complemented that because using videos is a good way to establish credibility and attract clients. And it was really simple. They would opt in for the webinar on how to build a consulting practice properly and how to attract a lot of clients. And then right after they opted in, you know what? Let me show you. How about that? Here's how it works. So I drove traffic to a registration page, different than most registration pages, but I want to show you the strategy before we talk about tactics. So drove traffic from Facebook and Google, etc., to a registration page. They opted in, said, yes, I want to register, right? Now, two things happened upon registration. Thing number one is, there it is, they got a video immediately that sold Video Black Box. Now, I don't know how well you can see the screen here, but the headline here says, it worked. You're all set. I'll email you the access codes and reminders. Now watch this 14-minute tutorial on how to sell more stuff. And that video is just a screen flow video made in PowerPoint. It's like this webinar is. And it said, hey, you know, if you want to get consulting clients, one of the things that's really helped me get consulting clients and build credibility in my marketplace is the use of video. And I said, here's how I make videos. I gave them a tutorial. Then I offered my Video Black Box course at the end. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is also immediately after they register, I sent them an email which linked back to that video. Right? Now, both of these two little things, it took, what, 10 minutes to set that up? Well, of course, I had to record my little pitch for Video Black Box. It was very simple. So just those two things equaled money, specifically over $100,000 in sales. How do you like them apples? Now, again, critical. You have got to do it properly. So the trick to making this work is multiple. First, on your thank you page after they register, you acknowledge the fact that they registered, right? So here, let me go back and show you. Boom, 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 boom. Notice there at the top of this video page, it says, it worked, you're all set, I'll email you the access codes and reminders, right? So get out of there. There we go. The trick to making it work is, number one, acknowledge the fact they register. If you just send them straight into a pitch without acknowledging the fact they registered, it'll freak them out. They'll be like, hey, what is this? I thought I registered for a webinar. I'm freaked out. I can't pay attention to this message because the primary question in my mind is, did I or did I not register for the webinar, right? So you got to get that thought out of the way. Acknowledge the fact they register. Thing number two, make the offer relevant to the topic of your webinar. Now, my webinar was about getting consulting clients. I made my presentation. It was only 14 minutes. I made that little presentation. Hey, one of the things that's helped me get consulting clients is to do video properly. Let me show you how to do it. Thing number three is you teach to sell. Notice that I created that video as what? A tutorial, right? And I said, look, here are 3 things that you do to make videos good. And I walked them through the simple 3-step process, gave them examples. And then at the end, I said, listen, if you like this and you want more of this, you can buy this Video Black Box product, right? Now, also, don't spam them with the link. Just email them the link to your tutorial one time after registration and then focus on the webinar. What I'm showing you right now is just a quick little surgical strike profit generation strategy that can give you a profitable webinar before the webinar even occurs, right? So very simple, very low tech, very effective. So get out there and do that one, but let's not start there. By the way, at the end of that email that says, hey, go watch this tutorial, you want to include your webinar info. So you say, hey, thanks for registering. Before you attend the webinar, you might want to watch this tutorial. Hope you enjoy it. See you later. P.S. The webinar is on X date at X time, and here's your link, right? So, and then the rest of your emails are about the webinar itself. Now, let me give you some fun with math, right? Let me just show you how powerful this is because it sounds simple. Let's say you pay 75 cents per click to get people to your registration page, right? And that's in Google or dude, I almost said Overture. That's how long I've been doing this. Yahoo, Bing, whatever, Facebook. Let's say your average cost per click is 75 cents. That's a little bit high, but I think it's a fair estimate considering we've got God knows how many people from how many different markets are on here, right? So let's just say, hypothetically, that's how much you're paying. Now, let's say that 25% of your visitors opt in and register for your webinar. That's an okay opt-in rate. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's kind of meh. I would expect you to do better, but let's be conservative, right? So if those 2 things are true, then 100 visitors times 75 cents each equals 75 bucks that you spent, right? So that's pretty simple. Now, if 100 visitors times 25% opt-in rate, that's going to give you 25 registrants, right? Therefore, we got 25 registrants for 75 bucks. Now, if that's the case, then We divide $75 in cost by 25 registrants and realize we got $3 per registrant. That's how much we spent to get someone to, on average, to get someone to register for the webinar. So if this is true, I hope I'm not losing anyone with the fast math here. One of the most dangerous things we could do is math in public. You know, as I'm doing this, I'm like, God, am I doing that right? Have I screwed up somewhere? I think we're good, right? So we're spending $75 in traffic, and that $75 yields 25 registrants. So therefore, each registrant is $3, right? So if that's the case, let's say we wanted 100 registrants. Well, 100 registrants times $3 per person is $300 we would spend, okay? So let's say we got 100 registrants, and let's say that your pre-webinar offer sells something for $200, like Video Black Box. Technically it's $194, but to make it easier, we'll round it up, right? And let's say that you just got 1.5% conversion. That means 1.5 sales. It's like 1.5 people. So that one straggler, who knows what their story is, right? So you just made your $300 back with just a 1.5% conversion rate. That means you got a free list. Guess what? I made more. All right. Now, this is by no means an income claim. Like I said, I don't know what you're selling. I don't know what your skill level. I don't know what your price points. I know nothing. I'm just showing you what worked for me and giving you some hypothetical examples. Point being, these numbers that I'm giving you are fairly well grounded in the reality of my business personally. In fact, 1.5% conversion is terrible. So I would expect to do better. Just really illustrating how effective this strategy is, right? So try that, do it. Big thing, make it a tutorial and make it relevant to the webinar thing, but don't cannibalize what you're selling on the webinar. Complement it, right? So if you get 2% conversion, by the way, which is 2 out of 100 people, I mean, come on, right? That means you've made a profit before your webinar even begins. Well, let's keep rolling here. Let me tell you about pillar number 2 of your whole webinar big picture. This is something called the authority process. Another huge thing I never see anybody doing, right? So here's the deal. What you need to do before the webinar is critical. If you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get the same results everyone else is getting. Look, here's what everyone else does, okay? You've been there, so I know you've seen it. They basically, you register for a webinar, and then you get 700 million emails saying the webinar is starting in 10 minutes, the webinar is starting in 9 minutes and 40 seconds, the webinar is starting, blah, 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 and you're like, good God, dude, quit emailing me 900 times. You do want to remind them, obviously, but we want to do a lot more than that, right? So most webinars, as you know, do that same thing I just told you. They have a terrible show-up rate. But just focusing on showing up, that's what everyone else does. They think, okay, my whole mission is just to make them show up, right? Make them show up. Then how do you make them show up? You tell them to show up, right? So we don't want them to just show up, right? That's what everybody else does. We want them to show up and buy. We want them to show up predetermined to like us, know us, trust us, and want what we are selling, right? So there's a way to do it. We want them to know, like, and trust us before they show up. We want them to want what we've got before they show up. We want to handle objections they might have before they show up. And finally, yeah, we want them to show up, right? So how do we do all of that? It's a little thing we call the indoctrination sequence. Now, this is a big, big deal, okay? So what an indoctrination sequence is, it is a series of emails, almost like a miniature campaign that occurs before the day of the webinar, right? So it happens between the time they register and the day before the webinar, right? And essentially it resells them on the value of attending. That's one thing it does. So it kind of gets them to think, yep, it gets them excited about the webinar, not by saying that the webinar is happening, which they know, but by talking about the benefits. I'll give you an example in a minute. It also pre-positions you as an authority because during this, you're going to give them content. We're going to give them results and good juju in advance of them even showing up. As a result of that, they're going to like us before they show up. It increases trust via familiarity. So actually it increases trust 2 ways. Number 1, you've helped them before they even attend. Way number 2 is they've seen you a lot. They've heard your voice. They've seen your name. They've gotten stuff from you. All of this creates familiarity. Familiarity creates trust, right? It's a common psychological fact. So that's the purpose of this. Here's how it works, right? So I made this little diagram myself in a Keynote here. So it's a little bit ghetto, but I don't think you're here for the fancy graphics, right? So the day they registered, right, if you'll remember, we went through that little registration maximizer process, and as soon as they opted in, they saw the little video and the confirmation said, hey, it worked, we're all set, I'll email you the access codes and reminders. Now watch this 14-minute tutorial on how to sell more stuff, right? I know you probably can't read that, but I've got it memorized because I wrote the copy. And there's my little video that sells Video Black Box. At the exact same time, they were sent an email that said, before you attend, watch this. Right? And I say, before you attend the webinar, you should watch this tutorial. I tell them what it's about. I give them a link. And then in the PS, I also say, hey, here's the date and time and link for the webinar, right? So that happened immediately. Now, it's indoctrination time, okay? So everything in this little box here, this top box, is part of the indoctrination sequence, right? So the first thing we have is, it really doesn't matter when you send this, they all need to be sent before the day before the webinar, right? So it doesn't matter if it's day 2 in a sequence or whatever, really doesn't matter. You just don't want them to be getting this on the day of the webinar. It's distracting, right? So here we go. First thing I do in indoctrination sequence is I send a video, and I call this the what, why, when video. And I know that sounds weird. I should probably call it something easier to remember, like indoctrination video number 1, right? But the format of this is what, why, when, right? So if you can see the screen, the headline of this video says Advanced Training for Building a Successful Consulting Practice, What to Expect on the Upcoming Webinar. So what I do in this video is I say, hey everybody, here's what to expect on the upcoming webinar. Here's why it's important to you and why you should attend, and here's why it's different than anything you might have attended, and then finally, here's when it's going to occur, right? And that video might be like 7 minutes, right? I'm just giving them some cool content and basically familiarizing them with me, having some goodwill, if you're making a good faith appearance, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you, just courtesy, right? So again, the format for that is number 1, what to expect. I know it's not on the screen. I just want you to take notes here. Indoctrination video number 1 goes what to expect, why it's important to you, why it's different than everything else, and when the webinar is, right? It's very, very simple. You can do it live like I do there in front of a camera. You can even do it on screen cam. Doesn't matter, but you need to do it. Now, after that, let's say the next day, you send them indoctrination video number 2. And what I like to do, if I set it all up properly, if I'm not in a hurry, is I like to have the second indoctrination video overcome a concern that they might be having about why they can't do whatever the thing is I'm going to show them how to do on the video. So I'll give you an example. I knew that the overwhelming concern of the majority of registrants for my consulting webinar was, well, I can't get any consulting clients because I'm not famous and I'm not a guru, right? So in this video number 2, I overcame that primary concern by teaching people how the client-centric marketing model works, right? And that's a whole thing. It's about consulting and everything. But I just went ahead and I taught them that in advance of the webinar. Now, what am I doing right now? Before the webinar, they've seen me twice, they've heard me twice, I told them what to expect, I reassured them, I gave them some confidence, and I'm also giving them some content, some actionable, usable content. Now, that familiarity and that demonstration of goodwill and that provision of results in advance causes what to happen? What do you think is happening now? Before they even show up, do you think they like me more than if I hadn't done that, or do you think they like me less than if I hadn't done that? Obviously, they're going to like me more because I'm helping them, right? This novel concept of demonstrate you can help them by actually helping them. Now, at the end of that second indoctrination video sequence, what I did is, again, I gave them the date and time of the webinar. I said, hey, the webinar is going to be on this date at this time. I really look forward to seeing you there. You might want to show up early. I'm going to be at the end to answer your questions if you need anything, just really casual, mellow stuff. So video number 1 can be, all these videos can be live action in front of the camera, or it can be a screen cam with PowerPoint, doesn't matter. Video number 1 is what, why, when. Video number 2 is let me teach you how to overcome a problem you might be having, and then here's when to show up, right? So it's 100% goodwill. There's no selling in any of them. It's just you being cool. Right now, what happens the day before the webinar and the day of the webinar? Well, over those 2 days, we have something called a show-up sequence. And essentially, what we do is we just send a series of email reminders. Now, I won't go into the tactics of this. I will say it's different than what you're used to seeing, and it's more elegant and it's more helpful to people, but essentially it serves the same function. We just send a series of 4 email reminders, right? And that makes up these 2 chunks here that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. This makes up the indoctrination sequence. So it's very simple. The entire sequence is 1 email, 1 video, plus 1 email to another video, plus 4 reminders. That's the whole thing. But just doing that extra little step makes your webinars so much more successful. As a matter of fact, just doing this increased my attendance and conversion instantly, and that caused an immediate increase in sales as a result. I've never seen anyone else in the marketplace do it. You probably won't have anybody in your marketplace doing it. It is easy. It is fast and it will help you, and your customers and prospects will thank you for it. And ultimately, that's why we're in this business, is to help people and spread goodwill and to do good things. And this is exactly how you do it. But buddy, we are not even close to being done. Let's talk about helping people even more on the webinar itself, right? Because, hey, why would we give webinars? Why would we ever expect them to buy anything from us if we didn't help them? So the webinar itself, really, really big deal. There are 5 steps to doing a webinar that sells in a cool way. Now, yes, you can make one that sells in an uncool way where you're super hypey and you provide no content or, kind of disguised content or whatever. We're not going to do that. I'm going to show you how to do it the really, really awesome way that's going to give you customers and fans for life, right? That's very important to me, that the work you and I do together is for the betterment of everybody in our respective marketplaces. And that's what we're going to do right now. So let's get started. Step number 1, I'm going to do the same thing, by the way. I'm going to give you all of these steps, and then I'm going to walk you through them individually, right? So there's no need to really scramble in the note taking right now. Step number 1 is a confirmation. Step number 2 is something I call the difference. Step number 3 is the bond. Step number 4 is the payoff, and step number 5 is the offer. Now, what the heck does all of that stuff mean? Let me walk you through each one individually, starting with step number 1, which is the confirmation. So here we go. What you want to do in the beginning of your webinar is you want to confirm that they've made the right decision to attend. Then you want to introduce yourself, really reintroduce yourself, because they should already know you from the indoctrination sequence. So reintroduce yourself to reestablish familiarity. And you might even want to mention the indoctrination sequence. Like, oh, by the way, thank you so much for all of your kind words on the videos I sent you before this webinar. If you like those, you're really going to love what we're doing here today, right? Just really common courtesy kind of stuff. The next thing is you want to sell them, notice the use of the quotes there, you want to sell them on staying on the webinar by future pacing what the rest of the webinar will be like, right? So kind of weird to sort of try to picture all that in your mind. How about I give you examples from this very webinar? So I'll pull up some slides where we've done that. Notice this one, I reintroduce myself, mercifully brief introduction, right? I say, hey, here's me, and here are my little, what do you call it, credentials and blah, 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 right? So you probably remember that because we just did it 40 minutes ago or whatever. And then I kind of resold you on the webinar by saying, here's what we're going to learn, right? How to get people to register for your webinar and how to do it for free, right? So we just did that, how to get them to show up predisposed to buy from you. We just did that, right? And then how to provide massive value on your webinar and still make tons of sales. We're doing that right now. So it's pretty simple. That whole process, it might take 2 minutes, right? You don't need to spend forever on it. You just need to do it, okay? Because it kind of sets the tone. Otherwise, they're like, what the hell am I here? Blah, blah, blah. Now, step number 2 is important. I call this the difference. This is how we're going to immediately start being dramatically different than everyone else in your marketplace. This is where you first acknowledge skepticism and objections. You also do a light takeaway by stating who this is not for. Now, these 2 actions alone help silence the audience's inner dialogue, which will otherwise constantly be asking, yeah, but what about whatever, their big concern. And we also we also address skepticism and objections in our next step as well. So let's talk about these skeptics, right? Because I've talked about the audience's natural objection a lot and people's natural skepticism a lot. Now, here's what I believe to be true. We can never win when fighting nature. We simply cannot. Like, can you and I ever, can mankind really ever devise a device or a system or some type of technology to stop gravity permanently? Or we could temporarily do it, sure, through airplanes. We can't do it. We can't win. We can't fight nature. We cannot stop the tides of the ocean. We cannot stop the wind. All we can do is harness these things of nature and use them for our greater good. And that's why I think it is foolish to ignore our audience's guaranteed skepticism and guaranteed objections. If we simply harness those by addressing them and helping the audience with them, we generate much more power. Wouldn't you agree? So let's talk about that for a minute. Consider these facts, right? All buyers, period, all have valid objections and concerns. Even if their objections are wrong, they're still valid, because how are we to fault them for having a concern? It's human nature. So of course it's valid. All buyers have been lied to and mistreated by someone. There is a common belief in our culture today that anyone selling something is full of shit, especially if you're selling something on how to improve an aspect of your life and business. We are, by default, labeled as sleazy and scammy just by the very nature that we are going forth into the world and proclaiming, I can help you, I can make it better. It's simply the way our culture works. So it's foolish to try to fight this. The only thing that we can do is to acknowledge this and harness it to our advantage, right? Very, very big deal. Nobody else does this. So as a result of all of these three things I just said, all buyers are skeptical on some level. It is simply human nature. So if you don't address these objections head on, we're losing a fortune, right? But when you do address them, you gain sales, you gain trust, you gain loyalty, you build goodwill, you stand out from the crowd, you're one of the good guys, and ultimately you should make more money. That has definitely been my experience, and I want it to be yours as well. So that's why we have this stage. This stage is critically important. That's why I'm giving so much attention to this, right? So let me give you an example from this webinar where I have addressed skepticism so far. First of all, I said why this is important to you now, right? I say most webinar stuff we've learned is dead wrong. Why, right? Why would I say that? Because a large percentage of my audience is going, man, if this is going to be one of those webinars about how to be all hypey, I don't want any part of this. I went on to say, I said most market saturation has made people immune to webinars. Why did I say that? Well, it's true. And I know that a percentage of my audience is saying, webinars are everywhere. Everyone's doing webinars. I don't know if I want to bother doing webinars, right? And I went on, show up rates are in the toilet because they are, right? I know people are going to be thinking about that, so I want to address it. And I said, if you sell too hard, they'll be mad. If you teach too much, you'll overwhelm them, right? You lead with the truth. You can never really go wrong with the truth, especially if you just learn to use it in your favor. Another place I did it was the house rules, right? I said, look, I know that a lot of people in the audience are probably thinking, is this going to be one of those things where it's about get rich quick and being hypey and all that kind of stuff? And I addressed that skepticism immediately, right? I did that with the takeaway too. So it's important. And we also continue to do it in the next step. Now you'll notice that step 2, the difference, what was that, like 2 slides? It wasn't a big deal, right? We don't spend forever on it. Step number 3 is something called the bond, right? And we spend a little more time here, but not too much more time. The meat of our webinar is in the upcoming steps. But step number 3 is something that we call the bond, right? Now, the bond is where you bond with the audience by telling a short, true story. Notice the story, the word true there is in all caps. Please don't make stuff up, right? So there are 2 classic formulas for telling your story. Classic formula number 1 is feel, felt, found. That's where I would have said, you know what? A lot of people here, I know that some of you are probably thinking that the webinars are too hard and you might feel like they're really complicated and difficult because of the technology. I know exactly how you feel, right? So that's chunk number 1. Now we get to chunk number 2. I used to feel the same way. In fact, I felt that way for years. That's chunk number 2, the felt. And then the third thing is until I found this new system that I want to share with you, right? That would be that classic formula. And in that formula, we would elaborate on the story, right? I would say, I felt that way. Here are the things that happened to me, etc., right? Classic formula number 2 is a formula of struggle, loss, discovery, and rebirth, which is kind of what we went into today, right? I said, hey, listen, man, I had, as a matter of fact, let me just show you the slides instead of trying to walk you through it. Here's the thing. The purpose of the bond, and I'll show you the slides here in a minute so you can see where I did it. The purpose of this section is to use this story to further address objections and defeat skepticism, not by saying they're wrong for being skeptical, but by showing that their skepticism is valid and here's how I overcame what you were naturally worried about, right? That's the purpose of it. So the story should ultimately serve to address and defeat skepticism and future pace of possible results. So let me show you now how I did all of that stuff in the story, and I did it in about maybe a 10-minute period, right? So here's the example from this webinar. First, what do you think the primary objection people have when they're working with someone like myself? They say, well, of course this worked for you because you're special, right? And I don't mean me personally. I mean my circumstances are special and that I've been in this industry for almost 15 years. So naturally, I've got a little momentum. So what did I do? I began my story by saying, you know what? You're right. I do have an advantage over most. And then what do I go on to do? I say, but damn if I didn't screw the whole thing up. So that's a story of struggle. So I talk about my getting 3,000 people on the webinar and spending all this money and making less in sales than I spent on the thing, which is still just, whatever, it happens, right? And then I talk about, I turned it around. I said, listen, I came to this decision and I was decided to learn how to do it right. So I go ahead, I talk about the story of struggle, then I talk about my decision, and that decision leads to a discovery. Right? And I say, what you're about to see has been used to perform the near magical act of turning advertising into profit. Then I go on to say, I have spent over $200,000 on webinar advertising. Now, what we're doing right there is I'm overcoming the objection very subtly of, well, I don't have joint venture partners. I don't know how to get a list and all that kind of stuff. And I'm saying, you know what? I didn't use my list either because I was embarrassed. I spent all this money. I've perfected the system. You see what I mean? And then I went on to say, for the past 3 years, my average webinar campaign has brought in $849,280.40 in revenue. And that's where I'm now leading into the discovery. And the rest of your webinar, of course, is the elaboration on what you've learned during that discovery process and really how to do everything. And that's where we're now going to start helping them, right? So those are the two classic story formulas that you can do in a webinar, that you can use in a webinar. Obviously, your entire webinar doesn't need to be a story. If you remember, it was about 10 minutes or so during my part from this webinar. It was really helpful. All this stuff actually happened. It was kind of funny. It was kind of embarrassing. And it really did what it was supposed to do during that part of the presentation. Now, step number 4 is a really big deal. The payoff. This is the meat of your webinar, right? This is what we're in now, where you're teaching them how to do the thing they want to do, right? So here's the thing. This is a big deal, by the way. There are 3 ways we can influence people, and only 3, right? Now, of each of these 3 ways, these 3 major categories, there are subsets, but really there are only 3 major categories of influence we could ever possibly have. So category number 1 is to talk about how good we are. And by we, I mean our stuff. And by our stuff, I mean our products or service, right? So that's the obvious thing. That's what most people do. Hey, this is great. You're going to love this. This is incredible, right? Thing number 2 is to have others talk about how good we are, right? And that's very, very common as well. You have your testimonials. As a matter of fact, if you look at a launch, for example, your typical product launch is usually those 2 categories. Hey, I'm really great. Look how great all these other people said I am too. You should buy my stuff if you want to be great like these people say I am, right? Totally normal stuff. Now, those 2 work pretty good, obviously. The third is the crusher, right? The third is the absolute most effective thing, and that is to demonstrate how good we are. Don't talk about it, show it, right? That's what the payoff is. Why is this better? Because our grandmother was right. Universally, all grandmothers say this, at least mine certainly did. Mine said it enough for yours too, if yours didn't say this. She said, actions speak louder than words. Her name was Glennie Smith, and boy was she a jewel, and she used to say that all the time. Actions speak louder than words, son. I don't want to hear about it. I want you to do it. She said it over and over and over again. And you know what? It's the truth. It is the gospel truth, as a matter of fact. So why not use this fundamental truth to our favor by demonstrating that we can help, by show them we can help them by actually helping them? A novel concept, right? So the payoff is where we actually demonstrate how much we can help them by helping them. Remember, here's the thing. People don't think about how precious this commodity is. The audience have given you their most valuable and irreplaceable asset, which is their time. They can never get that time back. This time you're spending with me, you'll never get back. That's why I'm trying so hard to do a good job for you, because I respect that time. And I urge you, I beg you to respect your audience this time too. If you do, and you provide massive value to them in the section which we call the payoff, then you should prosper, right? That's why your audience must get a payoff for attending. They must get something out of that webinar, preferably a lot out of that webinar. If they don't, all trust is lost. They'll think you're a scammer. They'll think you're just another marketer, right? That's the kiss of death in our world. Just another marketer, just another salesperson, just another cosmetic surgeon, just another attorney trying to get clients, just another blah, blah, blah. That's the last thing you want. If you want to rise above the noise, it is up to you to do a great job on the payoff. So how about I show you how to do it specifically? To maintain trust and desire, you simply demonstrate you can help them by actually helping them. Therefore, you're going to want to teach 3 or 4 core things that they need in order to get the thing that they want. Now, these things must be actionable. It can't be just all theory. You got to show them how to do something, right? Now, the big deal here is you don't want to bog them down, right? So, no, I showed you how to generate registrants and sell something at the same time. I showed you how to build that indoctrination sequence, right? I showed you how to do that. I didn't bog you down. So what I mean by a bog-free payoff is this. Let's say you're doing a webinar on list building, for example, right? One of the things you want to teach them, of course, well, probably, I'm not going to tell you how to teach your stuff. I don't even know what you're doing a webinar on, right? But let's just say that's what you're doing it on, right? So one of the things you want to teach people is good opt-in page layouts. It just makes sense. If you want to build a list, you want people to opt in, you got to have a good opt-in page layout, right? So The right way to do this is to give them solid fundamentals like, hey, here are 15 different headline formulas that you can use. Here are screenshots of the winning layouts that I've seen in my testing for opt-in pages. These layouts got the highest conversion. This button color and this word combination of images, etc. These worked best, right? That's the right way to do it. Now, the wrong way, let me show you another right way. Another right way is to show them examples of good pages that are working now, right? That's what people want to see. The wrong way to do it is to walk them through complex HTML editing and page creation, right? Now, interestingly enough, when I have clients that I'll advise that do webinars that don't work, this is where they go wrong. They don't teach too much, they bog them down. You can teach all you want, but you don't want to bore them with complexity, right? So you don't want to say, okay, now that we learned these opt-in page layouts, let me show you how to build one in Dreamweaver to, CS4 or whatever. Here's how you get a cascading style sheet, and here's how you code that. They're like, oh my God, what the hell is this? And they'll leave, right? So you just don't want to overcomplicate things. You don't want to show them how to generate opt-in form codes, right? You just want to show them the pages. This isn't that awful just show them barely enough so they'll want more strategy. Not at all. You show them as much as you can. You just don't bore them because they don't get on a webinar for overwhelm. They get on the webinar for the big picture. So step number 5 is the offer. This is so important. This is where people freeze up. Man, if you do this right, you're just going to love it, right? Because so many people get scared and they get nervous. They're like, I don't want to be uncool and I'm afraid I'm going to sell some shit, Totally normal reaction, by the way. I'm going to show you how to do it properly. So there's an art and science to making the offer in a natural, comfortable, and respectful way that's not high pressure or uncool to people. And there are several formulas for presenting your offer and making the close. There's lots of them, and they're all awesome, and I'd be happy to show you all of the ones I know. But what I'd like to do right now is just give you a simple formula that works very, very well. Now, I said simple. It does have 12 parts, but it's still really, really simple. So I'm going to show you each part, right? So here we go. I call this the No-Frills Offer. This is like the nice, polite, friendly, no-hype offer structure. My favorite kind, right? So like I said, there's 12 steps. Step number 1 is called the NLP confirmation. This is interesting, and maybe some of you guys will probably know this. I have read 1/3 of 2 NLP books in my life because they're all so hard to read. They're like boring science books, But I learned this one strategy, and I've forgotten what it's called, and I even forgot the rules around it. But apparently it goes something like this. If you state 2 obvious facts, the mind will then assume the very next thing you state in a factual manner will in fact be true. So I call this chunk the NLP confirmation. It's neat. And it goes like this. You say something like, listen, you're watching this webinar. You are in front of your computer or on your phone or on your iPod with me right now. Now, those are 2 facts, right? Obviously, they're watching the webinar. Obviously, they're on the computer watching it, or phone or iPad. And now we introduce the 3rd thing, which we want them to accept as fact. And that is always, and you know that if you do this, it will be really, really good for you, right? So that's kind of a crass over-exaggeration of how it works. But that is a good thing to do because it sets you up for the order. It gets them nodding their head and saying, yeah, okay. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is the reason why intro, where you say, well, you know what, how about this? I'll walk you through the 12 steps and then I'll just demonstrate the whole thing for you by actually making my offer, right? That'll probably make better sense. So step number 3 is the big benefit. Please write these down, by the way. It's really, when you're constructing your offer, this will help you a lot. Step number 4 is just for you. Step number 5 is the walkthrough, and that's where you walk them through exactly what they're getting, right? Step number 6 is the price, where you reveal the price. Now we move on to step 7. Step 7 is something I call the booster number 1. That is something you say or do or give to boost the desire. That could be a price discount, or it could be an extra bonus, or it could be a deadline, right? Step 8 is risk reversal. That's your guarantee. Step 9 is booster number 2. That is another bonus or a price discount or a deadline. Step number 10 is the recap. That's where you just recap the whole offer really quickly. Step 11 is where you repeat that second booster or have a booster number 3. It's your choice. Again, a booster is going to be a bonus, a discount, or a deadline. And step 12 is to finally repeat your risk reversal again. So it's really pretty simple. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to make this offer by making my offer to you. So here's the deal. Let's talk about you. You are watching this webinar right now. You've been with me the entire time we've been together. We've been together almost an hour, I think a little more than an hour, as a matter of fact. And you know that selling with webinars is a good idea. You know that if you were to make a lot of sales on webinars, and you'd make a lot of money, and that would be awesome, right? And that is why I've specifically designed the Ultimate Webinar Blueprint. What the Ultimate Webinar Blueprint is a system that walks you through my very process for making webinars, right? It shows you how to build a list using webinars. It shows you how to hold a webinar properly, like this one, where you actually help people and you bond with your audience instead of just selling at them. It shows you how to make sales on your webinar in a cool, non-hypey way, and it shows you how to do all of this in just 28 days. So if you want to build authority in your marketplace and do it the right way, not the hypey way, but the way by demonstrating your knowledge and your skill, if you want to create a loyal following by serving them and really helping people out, if you want to get a highly responsive list who just loves you, and if you want to build massive goodwill in your marketplace all at the same time while you're simultaneously selling like crazy, all in just 28 days, then this is specifically for you. If you're a veteran webinar person, what you learn in this will definitely take your webinars to the next level, just in the conversion strategies alone. If you're new to doing webinars and you want to do webinars the right way and bypass your learning curve, this is equally as important for you, because I'll give you a proven blueprint of a system that has been working very, very well for me for the past 2 years and counting, giving me an average webinar campaign result of $604,000 and change per campaign. So it's working pretty good, and you can model what is working very well for me and apply it to your business. So here's how we're going to do this. Here's how we're going to accomplish you building a good, solid webinar that sells in just 28 days. The Ultimate Webinar Blueprint has 4 modules, right? Each module covers 1 week of activity. Module number 1 is recon and registrants. Remember, I was talking about those 5 pillars. The first 2 are recon and registrants. That's what we do in module number 1. Module 2 is indoctrination. This is where we get them to feel like they know, like, and trust you before they show up on your webinar, so they'll be more likely to show up and they'll be more likely to buy. Module number 3 is where I teach you how to create your ultimate sales webinar, a good, impactful, useful, helpful webinar that delivers good results in advance to your marketplace, creates massive goodwill, and simultaneously sells like crazy. Module number 4 is something we didn't talk about. Module number 4 is maximizing your revenue after the webinar has occurred. And by the way, I'm not talking about replays. As a matter of fact, I don't think you should ever do recorded replays. I think it trains people not to show up. So module 4 is very, very exciting stuff that no one will ever show you. Now let's take a closer look at exactly what's going to happen in each one of these modules. So module 1, recon and registrants. Like I said, here's what you're going to do. First, you're going to discover who your best prospects are so you can attract people who are most likely to buy. Because look, let's think about this. What's the point of going out and getting a lot of registrants if they're not going to be the very people who are perfectly suited to buy your stuff, right? So we want to stack the odds in your favor from the get-go. We're also going to discover their primary drivers and objections so you can craft a perfect message that sells every time in a cool way that builds goodwill and actually helps them. We're also going to model my winning registration page templates so you'll get more signups from your traffic. Listen, it makes sense, right? The more signups you get of the proper people, the more attendees you'll get on the webinar, and therefore the more sales you should be able to make. It's pretty simple. And yes, you heard me right. Winning registration page templates. There's no point in the world of starting this process from scratch, especially since for the past 2 years and change and more than $2 million worth of sales, I've been perfecting the registration system, right? More stuff you get in this one is we're going to craft the perfect liquidator offer so you'll make sales before the webinar even happens. Remember at the very beginning of this presentation, I showed you that little trick where I created and sold video black box specifically to people who had registered for the webinar, and in the act of doing that, I was able to make more than I spent on advertising before the webinar even started. Well, that's what I want to show you how to do. So we're going to craft that perfect offer. Going to show you how to frame it like a tutorial, how to teach to sell, how to craft everything from opt-in to thank you page to first email so that, yeah, you can make some sales before the webinar even happens. That's our mission, right? Also going to give you templates of invitation emails to get people to show up from your list, templates of registration pages you can use with PPC and other advertising, walkthroughs of liquidation pitches, just like the video black box pitch. Also, you can hit the ground running and not have to start from scratch. So that's what we're going to do just in the very first week. So just in the very first 7 days, we should have all of this stuff done. And we're going to keep our momentum in module 2, which is how to get that indoctrination sequence created so they will show up more and show up knowing you, liking you, trusting you, and wanting what you have to offer. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to create the perfect pre-webinar series that creates authority, overcomes skepticism, and increases trust and builds desire so you can make more sales. That's the purpose of that whole thing. We're going to do that by creating a show up and reminder sequence that'll maximize attendance so you can have even more people to sell to. We're going to give you walkthroughs of my very own high converting indoctrination sequences. I'm going to give you templates of my videos and walkthroughs of those videos. I'm going to give you templates of my indoctrination emails and walk you through those emails. I'm going to give you process maps showing you exactly an actual blueprint of my most effective indoctrination sequences so you can model them, so you can save time by modeling what's already working. I'm also going to give you templates of my reminder sequence so you can fill in your own details and plug and play without having to come up with simple sequences on your own, right? This will save you time. This will help you hit the ground running. Hey, we got 28 days to do this. We're going to do it, right? And that's just module 2. Now, we built up a lot of momentum here in the second week. Now, going into the third week, we should be on fire creating your ultimate sales webinar. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you my simple one-day process for cranking out webinars. Yeah, you don't need to spend a week on this. If you do it right and you do your planning right and you follow this process, you should be able to crank out your webinar in one day. And let's think about this now. The more hot selling webinars you have, logically, the more sales you should make, right? I mean, my gosh, what if you had like 10 different webinars? You could just choose, and whenever you wanted to make extra sales, you could just run one of those webinars. Well, that's exactly the reality I want to create for you. And that's why we're going to give you this one-day process. You can crank them out fast. There's no point in pulling your hair out. We're not writing an English term paper for your senior year. We're having fun. We're making webinars. We're helping people. We're selling stuff. And that's what we're going to do in module 3. I'm also going to share with you something really incredible, which is webinar NLP strategies. Now, I've talked about one little strategy here in this offer sequence, but there are a lot more. I'm going to share with you these things so you can sell to their unconscious and their conscious minds. This is a really, really big deal. I've never seen this covered, and I don't even know if you could technically call what I'm going to share with you NLP. You could call it hypnotic selling patterns. I'm not an NLP expert, so I throw that term around loosely, but here's what I do know. It has worked wonders for me, where it enables you to sell, enables you to paint pictures mentally, to draw people towards what they want without being too overt, without being salesy, without being hypey. I'm going to show you all of my strategies for doing that in a very cool way that still builds goodwill and maintains value with other people. Also in module 3, I'm going to give you pre-made webinar slide templates so you can just fill in your own material so you can cut out the guesswork and model what's working and get your webinars done faster and easier. Listen, looking at a blank piece of paper or a blank PowerPoint deck is very, very intimidating. Just nothing fosters writer's block worse than the blank slate. That's why I'm going to give you these templates, these pre-made templates that you can use. I'm going to have them all chunked down for you so you say, okay, I know, here's how I'm going to structure my introduction. Here's how I'm going to structure the difference section. Here's how I'm going to structure the bond. Here's how I'm going to structure the payoff. Here's how I'm going to structure my offer. Now, of course, you need to fill it in with your own content, but I'm going to give you that framework. So all you're really doing is decorating. It's kind of like I'm giving you an empty house that you make your own by putting in the nice furniture and the nice decorations and giving your own personal touch to it. So that is a very, very big value for you. And the reason I've taken the time to include it is because, look, we got 28 days to get you making sales, buddy. And I don't want any excuses, and I know you don't want it either. You're here on this webinar. You've stayed all this time. I know you're serious. I'm going to go the extra mile for you, and I want you to go that extra mile for yourself, and I want to make it easy for you to do so. And that's why I'm also going to give you director's cut walkthroughs of my most profitable webinars so you can see the exact words, images, and phrases that brought in over $849,000 per campaign on average now for the past 3 years running. And of course, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by saying everyone who does this is going to, or anyone who does this is going to bring in $849,000 per webinar or any amount of money for that matter. I have no idea. I'm not psychic and I don't claim to be. But what I am telling you is that you can look at these words and phrases and these patterns that I'm going to give you, and you can deploy them in your own webinar for good, not just your own good from a sales perspective, but also as a means to get your message across, get your tips across, get your help across to a wider audience so you can help more people and you can be a greater force for good, because that's what it's all about. The good guys always win. If you're a good guy, you will win. And that's exactly what this course is about, is helping you deliver these presentations in a way that enrich the lives of others, help them add value to their lives, and also make you sales in the process. Because let me tell you something, if you do that, you deserve the sale. Right? If you deliver a helpful presentation and you help other people, you enrich their lives, you deserve that money. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Now, Module 4, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but boy, are we ever going to have a lot of momentum when we go into week 4. Now, I want you to picture this. By week number 4, we will have created your registration process. We will have created your indoctrination series. We will have created your webinar. You could be running webinars already by week number 4, but have you ever considered the fact that not everybody who attends your webinar will buy? That's just nature, right? Now, we got two choices. We can work our tails off to try to make your webinar convert a few percentage points higher, or we can harness the power of nature and create a specific campaign and process to deal with the people who attended but didn't buy. I want to tell you something. What I'm going to give you in Module 4 is something that you will not learn from anyone else. I have never, ever seen anyone doing anything like this. Let me give you a better description. I'm going to give you a detailed process map and a blueprint for my hard-hitting post-webinar sequence that boosted sales for me personally by 40%. Not 4, that is 40%. The reason I'm doing this is so you can model it, and when you model and deploy it, I want you to continue to make sales after the webinar is over. A tremendous amount of revenue comes in if you do it properly after the webinar is over. And I want to say again, I know I said this earlier, I want to make it absolutely clear, I'm not going to tell you ninja ways to give a replay. Listen, replays are over. If you give replays, it tells your audience that person cannot be trusted. That person said the webinar would fill up and that it wouldn't be given again, but now they've given me a replay. I cannot trust that person. You're training your audience not to believe you. Never give replays. Instead, use this process I'm going to give you to continue to add value to your attendees while simultaneously selling and building more goodwill. 40% boost is what this gave me. I'm confident you're going to see an incredible result from doing this, at least in the goodwill, but probably in maximum sales as well. But we're not going to stop there. I want you to know that this method is responsible. This happened in November of 2013, just recently. This method is responsible for bringing in trackable more than $300,000 in sales after one webinar I did. I am very excited to see what it can do for you. I'm sure you can tell by my tone of voice. I've never taught this before. I love it. It is really, really powerful, and I can't wait for you to see it and deploy it and get back to me on what it did for your business, right? So we're not done. Also, I'm going to teach you and give you post-webinar email templates. Look, what's the process? What's the point of a process map and a blueprint if you don't have templates, right? I want to do everything but decorate the house for you metaphorically. So I'm going to give you these templates so you can just model what worked while saving time and effort. I'm going to give you my post-webinar sales video secrets and walkthroughs so you can earn sales by sending helpful videos to your audience who still didn't buy. Look, don't be sending them emails and say, hey, you better buy now, you better buy now. That's going to piss them off. Why don't we continue and build on that momentum that you've already created on your webinar by helping them even more with the sequence I'm going to show you. Part of it is helpful videos. I'll give you mine. I'll give you director's cut. And I'll give you the process map on how to build them, and I'll also give you some templates. Really, what more do you need, right? I'm trying to do as much of the hard work for you as I can because, like I said, we got 28 days. I want you to have that good selling webinar in 28 days. That's not too short of a time period. It's plenty, right? It's plenty of time, but I want to make sure that you're able to do it in a way that is fun and exciting for you and also delivers value to other people. Now, also, for the first time ever, I'm going to give you post-webinar mass control methods so you can have launch-like sales after a webinar ends. Yes, I said that. Launch-type sales without the launch-type hype after your webinar. I'm going to give you that. Has never been taught by anyone before, ever. No one has ever seen this. I'm going to give this to you in part of Module 4, and I'm also going to give you post-webinar mass control templates so you can save time by modeling what worked. Now, if you don't know what I mean by mass control, then you might not have known me for a long time. About 5 years ago, I revolutionized the entire information and internet marketing industry by creating a system of selling called mass control. It is one of the most effective high selling and most popular systems ever to enter our community. I used mass control. Remember when I told you that I created the biggest launch campaigns in the history of our community there at the very beginning of this webinar? I used mass control strategies to do that. I have developed mass control methodology to be deployed after webinars end, and I've never taught it. And I'm going to give it to you in Module 4. It is very, very powerful, and you will be absolutely thrilled with it. So essentially what you're getting now is the exact system that I personally used to generate an average of $849,280.40 in sales for each campaign over the past 3 years running. And that is only including the campaigns where I have personally sold my own products and services. It is not including the campaigns that I have built for clients, such as the real estate company that I mentioned before, that used this very same methodology to sell actual real property. This is not even including the financial services company that I mentioned before that used this exact very same methodology to sell insurance and investments and to recruit financial services advisors for a national field marketing organization within that industry. And incidentally, every single bit of this was generated by paid advertising. So the price, well, my last class like this was an advanced consulting class. It sold out at $7,800 per student. Do you want to know what mechanism I used to sell it? If you guessed webinars, you were correct. The class before that was my magic model class. It sold out at $10,000 per student. Do you want to know what the mechanism was that I used to sell that class? You guessed it. It was webinars. This class is equally valuable, but way more affordable. You can enroll today for 3 easy payments of $876, or you can save $700 and make one simple payment of $1928. But it gets better. If you enroll during this webinar that we're on right now, you can make just 3 easy payments of $786, or you can save an additional $400 by making just one simple payment of $1528. Now that price is only good during the rest of this webinar presentation. After that, it goes to the original price that I just mentioned. So here's what I want you to do next. Click on the I want this button that hopefully is appearing on the screen right now, somewhere right about now. Choose the payment plan that suits you best, and then you'll immediately get your login info. You'll get a username and password sent by me to your email address. That will get you instant access to module number 1. Every week after that, we release a brand new module covering exactly what to do next during the class. And I've specifically structured it like this to make it very simple for you. It's all in bite-sized little pieces that are broken down into about 15 to 20-minute chunks. Now, there's several chunks, of course, per module, but this eliminates overwhelm, which is the number one reason that people tell me they have a hard time getting the results they want. They say it's too much stuff. So what I've done is I've deliberately broken this down for you in tiny little bite-sized chunks, and we trickle it out week by week. So at the end of the 28 days, your goal, you'll have found yourself creating a webinar that can be used to get clients, to get customers, to build goodwill, to build a list, to build authority, and everything. So if you want to learn how to build a list, if you want to create authority in the process, if you want to build massive trust in your marketplace, and you want to have a webinar that sells in just 28 days, then Ultimate Webinar Blueprint is for you. Go ahead, click the Enroll Now button that you see in this webinar display page, and let's go ahead and get started working together. Now, it still gets better, by the way, as if this awesome limited discount were not enough, it still gets significantly better. You are protected, of course, by the best guarantee ever. Here it is. I want you to take the entire class for 28 days. I want you to download everything. I want you to put everything to work. I want you to get all the spreadsheets, go through all the videos, create your webinar, use this sucker up. I want you to use it to build a list, run some webinars, make some sales. Like if this thing were a car and you were taking it for a test drive, I want you to take it on the track. I want you to take it on a high-speed chase. I want you to drive it through the woods. I want you to bring it back to me all beat to hell. And if you don't absolutely love it at the end of that time, if you decide it's not for you, just let me know and I'll give you a full refund. You can literally take the entire class, do everything, see what happens. And at the end of that 28-day class, if you don't think it was awesome, let me know. No problem. Full money back guarantee, no questions asked, and you can still keep everything. Like, what am I going to do? Go to your computer and say, sir, would you please undownload the materials that you took from this class? Of course not, right? Hey, sometimes it's not for everybody. That's okay. And of course, no wiggle clauses, no shenanigans. Your word is gold, right? You don't have to jump through any hoops. You say, hey man, it wasn't for me, no problem. Bam, instant refund, no worries whatsoever. But you know what? It still gets even better, all right? I've got a brand new bonus that I want to give you. I've created a system for newbies and or people who don't want to mess with tech stuff. And I call it the tech-free webinar system. In fact, there are really 3 ways to deliver webinars, and this is the first one of them. This is the lowest tech way to do it possible, and this is how I delivered most of my webinars when I was just starting. Remember I said way back when, all the way back in 2010, I spent $200,000 perfecting my system. This is the tech-free way that I did it back then. I was, of course, able to turn a very significant positive return on my investment back during that time. So with this system I'm going to give you, you don't need any fancy codes. You don't need any integration scripts. Any opt-in form will work. It doesn't matter, right? So if you're non-technical, that is perfect, but it still gets even better. I'm also going to give you the hybrid webinar system. Now, the hybrid webinar system is incredible. This allows you to do live webinars without being live the entire time. Now, doesn't that sound kind of weird? So let me explain how it works. How that works, let me go back there to that slide. So the way that works is you show up at the beginning of the webinar and you say hello and you make your small talk and you're there live, and then you play the actual meat of the webinar. That's the part that's recorded, and you're not doing it to trick anyone. You're doing it because you want to record the best possible version of you teaching that you possibly can. You want to get rid of the ums and the ahs and the places where you might mess up. So you let that play, and then at the end of that, boom, you're back on live and you're doing Q&A. And essentially what that allows you to do is to have an automated webinar that's not entirely automated. It allows you to have all the benefits of the live webinar without having to spend 90 minutes doing the same webinar presentation over and over again. You record the meat of it, you record the good part, and then you sandwich in the intro and the end part of it. That's where you're live. And it's really, really fun, and it can be very, very lucrative. So I'm going to teach you how to do that as well as a bonus. And of course, we're still not done. I also want to teach you the ultimate close. And man, I never in a million years thought that something so simple would be so powerful when it comes to webinar. This ultimate close methodology is how I added an extra 80% of the revenue from my webinars to the webinar. So pre-ultimate close, they were doing like 20% out of 100, and post-ultimate close, now they're doing 100% out of 100. It is absolutely incredible, and it doesn't involve anything weird. It doesn't involve you being high pressure. It doesn't involve you being salesy. As a matter of fact, the entire ultimate close methodology is 100% goodwill based. So not only does it increase sales, but it also makes the people who are on the webinar just freaking love you and think you're awesome. So what could be better than that, right? So let me give you a recap of everything that you're getting today. First of all, you get the 4-week ultimate webinar blueprint training, right? That's where within 28 days, we start from scratch. We build the registration systems. We build your liquidator offers. We build your indoctrination sequence. We build the webinar itself, which has this 5 stages I told you about, including the 12-part close. We go through all of that kind of stuff, and we have the post-webinar sequence, right? So all that's included in that 28-day thing. So it's designed to get you up and running within 28 days. Plus, you're getting the tech-free webinar system, so you can take the webinar you've created, you can deliver it in the tech-free way. If you absolutely don't want to deal with any type of tech headaches at all, this is perfect for you. Plus, I'm giving you the hybrid system as a step up in the level of advancement, meaning a little bit more tech stuff and barely any, but it's a huge step up in the level of efficiency. So it allows you to semi-automate your webinars where you show up live for a couple minutes, Then they see the main presentation recorded. Then at the end, you're live for Q&A, so you can show up all fresh and in good energy, and you're not exhausted from just giving a 90-minute presentation. That's how the hybrid system works. It's incredible. I'm also giving you the ultimate close as another added bonus. This is an incredible methodology that helps you sell without being pushy, without being salesy, without being annoying. In fact, by being the exact polar opposite, and the net effect of the ultimate close is not only increased sales, but it is also increased goodwill that you have with your marketplace, and you're actually increasing the amount of help that you're giving people, which is just plain old-fashioned good karma, and we could all do with as much of that as we can possibly get, right? So to further recap, you can save big by enrolling right now while we're on this presentation. You can make 3 easy payments of $786, or you can save an additional $400 by making 1 payment of $1,528. Now, once this webinar is over, that price is no longer valid. Now, this is true. I'm tracking everything, and I know I will be able to redirect you after this webinar to a forum that has the higher price. So if you don't act now, you will not be able to take care of and take advantage of this incredible discount. So if this is sounding good to you, I really urge you to save yourself a lot of money that you can invest in marketing, right? To make sales, to make a positive return on that investment. That's the way I think about it anyway. So you can save big money by enrolling right now. To further recap, you are protected by the best guarantee ever, right? Take the whole 28-day class, download everything, build the webinar, build the indoctrination sequence, run some webinars, see if you make sales, see what happens, and hey, at the end of it, if you don't think it was the greatest thing you've ever done, let me know. I'll give you a refund. You can keep it anyway. How could you possibly beat that guarantee? I know it's kind of crazy, but who cares? You know what I mean? We're all having fun here. Most people like it. Sometimes people get a guarantee, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but you're never going to know until you try. I can guarantee you, you're going to have better results by trying something than by sitting around and doing nothing. Don't you agree? So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to give yourself the gift of having this incredible technology and ability available for you. Now, there is a warning, like I've said, not to beat a dead horse here, but the crazy discount ends when this webinar is over. I'm just not going to extend that level of a discount past this actual webinar presentation. So once we're done with this webinar and we only have a few more minutes left, then the price will go up to the price I mentioned earlier, where it's going to be around $400 more. So if you want to save a pretty good bit of money, then go ahead and enroll now. Because think about it. You've watched this entire presentation. We've been on together for a while now, right? You've watched this whole thing. You want webinars that sell your stuff, and you know this is an excellent value. 28 days from now, you could have a webinar that actually gets customers and does so consistently and builds goodwill and builds a list in the process. What could possibly be better than that for your business? So go ahead, take advantage of this incredible discount, take advantage of the amazing bonuses, and take advantage of the can't lose guarantee right now. Now, I want you to consider this hypothetical example. Now, what if you did? What if you did all this? What if you built a webinar, right? It was pretty good. And what if this happens? Now, notice the word hypothetical here, right? I'm just kind of trying to run a scenario by you because I think webinars are extremely powerful. Let's say you're selling a course for $497, right? That's like, most marketing courses are $2,000 or whatever. So I'm arbitrarily pulling the $497 price point out of the ethers. Obviously, I don't know what you sell, what your prices are. So I'm just giving you an example. Let's say you do a webinar and you have 130 people on the webinar. I mean, that's not really that hard to do, to get 130 people to show up for a webinar. And let's say out of that 130 people, you only make 4 sales, and that's including the post-webinar sequence. So you don't even have to make them all on the webinar itself, right? You still have the whole post-webinar stuff I'm giving you. So out of all that stuff, you only make 4 sales. Well, look at the math here. 4 sales at $497 each is $1,988. That is more than the cost of this training. Now, again, please, I'm not insulting your intelligence by saying, buy this and you're going to immediately make $1,988. I don't know your business. I'm just trying to give you a hypothetical scenario so you can think of this logically, right? We can see the power of this. We can really do well with small numbers when we use tools as powerful as webinars the way that I'm going to show you how to make them. And again, all of the stuff that I'm giving you has been proven by the real world of paid advertising, not joint ventures, not launches, not that quote-unquote internet marketing guru game where you get your buddies to email each other's lists 9,000 times. That's pretend. marketing, right? That's pretend business. There's no skin in the game. Everything I'm giving you today has been tested on the front brutal lines of paid advertising, where you have to take a dollar and turn that dollar into $2 or more, or else you're out of business, right? That is what this has been used to make occur right here. So this clearly, in my opinion, is an absolute no-brainer. Plus, like I said, if you're not happy for any reason in the world, just let me know after you take the entire class. You got 28 whole days. Take the whole thing, download everything. And if you don't like it, let me know. Keep it anyway. I'll give you a refund nonetheless. What could possibly be easier than that, right? So go ahead, click the button that you see here, hopefully on this page, and get enrolled now. When you do, you'll choose a login, choose your name, password, your login information will be sent to you, and you'll immediately get access to Module 1. Every module will unlock each week after that, and of course, the bonuses will be unlocked at the end of the class as well. So before you do, though, before we're done, we're almost done. We might have about 5 minutes left here, depending on how quickly I can talk. There's something I want to share with you. Notice that I haven't spoken about automated and evergreen webinars. Remember, that used to be a big deal, right? I mean, you saw all kinds of systems that were sold for automated webinars and evergreen webinars. And in my opinion, those are really the most powerful tools for generating truly passive sales that you could possibly have. I mean, in my opinion, there's nothing better than a well-done automated webinar. But there's always been a problem with automated webinars, right? Actually, there have been two. First of all, marketers tried to insult their audience by faking them out and pretending the webinar was live. Remember, like all those systems where they had the fake chat boxes and the fake attendee names and all that kind of crap. And dude, I mean, you do that today and your audience is going to know you're lying to them. And what kind of precedent is that to set with a relationship, right? And second, even if that wasn't there, every automation platform out there, yeah, they all work pretty good, but good Lord, they are super freaking hard to use. It's like you've got to be an actual NASA rocket scientist to figure these damn things out, right? And that has always been a pain in the butt. And that is where you and I come in. Let me tell you what happened. I tried all the tools, I tried all the scripts, I tried all the plugins, and you know what? They all worked, but they were all hard as hell to implement, and they took forever to set up. So like creating an automated webinar would be like, oh yeah, dude, let's make an automated webinar. And then you'd like realize it was going to be horrible and a pain in the butt. And then you'd procrastinate it and nothing would happen. Plus, when you finally did put them all together, something always went wrong. Right? Like they never worked the first time. You'd always have to go back and debug something. And that sucks, right? It's very frustrating. So I took it upon myself personally to solve the problem. Here's what I did. I went to a major software company and I paid them a fortune to build a simple, evergreen, automated webinar solution that is easy to use fast. I said, here you go, boys. Take this money, build this thing, and I want to use it. But you know what? Everyone else can use it too. I don't care. I just wanted something for myself and for my clients. I don't mind if they go and they resell it. Who gives a damn, right? Now, so far they haven't because it's brand new, but that was my mind frame. It's like, who gives a crap? I'm going to pay, $5,000 to these people. They're going to build this thing. I'm going to have access to it. I don't care if the rest of the world has access to it. Let them all prosper and make $1 billion, right? But I wanted myself and my clients to go ahead and have something we could use now. So then I used that to build a campaign template. And that template is something I currently give to my high-end clients as part of a $17,580 program where they pay my company to build multiple interactive automated marketing campaigns and systems for them. So that's why I built all that stuff. That's why I spent all that money for myself and my clients. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell does this have to do with me, Frank? Why are you telling me about this? Well, because I want to give you that very same system right now. I want you to have it. It's called the Ultimate Automated Webinar System, and I'm going to give it to you as a final surprise bonus to push you over the top into making this no-brainer, risk-free investment into the Ultimate Webinar System. And I want you to know this thing's really easy. It works with Infusionsoft and a third-party app that I personally paid to develop. And it works with just about any web page builder in the world. So it's not like you have to have 9 million things to make this work. There's no custom scripting. There's nothing. You got Infusionsoft. You got this one little web-hosted third-party app that I built. That's the thing I paid $5,000 to have created. And any web page builder you want. Doesn't matter, right? And you're off to the races. And wait, what's that you say? What if you don't have Infusionsoft? Well, Maybe you don't, but I got good news for you. You're in luck because I am a certified partner of Infusionsoft because my company builds automated dynamic marketing campaigns for Infusionsoft users full time as part of our agency service for private clients. And because of that, that means I can hook you up with an account and completely waive the $1,800 setup fee that it takes to get started with Infusionsoft. So guess what? If you don't have Infusionsoft, but you want to use a system that I paid all this money to build, no problem. Write us, say, dude, I'm an Ultimate Webinar Blueprint student. I want to take advantage of your Infusionsoft offer, and guess what we'll do? We'll waive the $1,800 fee and get you set up with the Infusionsoft account at the level whichever you find suitable for you, right? So you really, really can't beat that. That is a heck of an offer, right? So let me tell you what this system does for you. Now that I've told you what it is, let me tell you what this fifth and final bonus does for you. It makes your webinars evergreen, right? So first of all, the date on the page always changes to X amount of days from now. So it's evergreen. Plus, once they register, it makes your email system show them the right date, shows them the right time, and it gives them the right link for your automated webinar. Plus, it automates your indoctrination and your reminder sequences and still inserts the dates and all the emails and everything, right, automatically. And it shows them a countdown page if they go to watch the webinar early. And if they go to watch the webinar after it's over, or if it's a little bit too late, it shows them an over page if they get there late. And it'll tell you who showed up early, who showed up when it was over, and it'll even allow you to re-invite the guys who came when it was over. So it even does more. It re-invites the people who don't show. So even if they register and they don't show up, it's going to know, and it's going to automatically re-invite them. You don't have to do any extra work. Plus, if they do show, but they leave early, it's going to deploy a special sales sequence to those people that's different from everyone else. And if they do stay through the entire webinar, but they don't buy, it'll automate that post-webinar mass control system I told you about earlier. So people who attend and don't buy can get more messages from you and really experience that launch type effect without the launch type hype, which is where you're really going to get a significant bump in response from all of your webinar campaigns. So this is absolutely amazing. It also allows you to do split tests. So you can split test your webinars, and that's going to allow you to see which one makes the most money, right? You want to test different prices, same webinar, different prices, no problem. You can do it with this system that I've had built for you. It allows you to give encore presentations, not replays, but encore presentations. So if after the webinar is over, they haven't purchased, you can invite them to watch an encore presentation, and you can even set it to where instead of playing 2 days from now, the encore presentation plays in an hour or in a day or in 2 days or however long you want it to be. It's totally up to you. So basically the net effect of this thing, the system which I have built for you with my own money and my own development resources, I'm just giving to you as a bonus as part of this new course, it lets you run traffic to automated webinars and watch sales come in. That's the net effect, right? So you're not doing webinars every week. You're just running traffic and watching your ROI on your ad spend and building a list and loving life because that's what it's all for. So basically, this webinar that you're on right now, this very presentation that you're on, everything you've experienced is being run by the exact custom system that I built that I'm talking about now and that I'm giving to you. So everything you're seeing right now is delivered by this custom system that I've built and that you are also going to have access to. So let's recap again here, right? You're getting the 4-week Ultimate Webinar Blueprint training. That means 28 days, you're going to have a webinar that follows my structure. You're going to have your indoctrination sequence. You're going to have your post-webinar sequence. You're going to have it all. You're going to be able to generate sales by putting people through a webinar. I'm also going to give you the tech-free webinar system. So if you're new or you don't like tech stuff, right, you got an alternative. There's a tech-free system where you can do it, no problem. I'm also going to give you the hybrid system, where if you like having live interaction with people, but you don't want to do 3-hour presentations at a time, you can semi-automate that. And I'm going to give you that. I'm going to show you exactly how that works. And I'm going to give you the ultimate close. That's where you're using this incredible closing process at the end of webinars that boosts your conversion tremendously, but it also delivers massive goodwill to the people who are on the webinar. They're going to like you even more, and you're going to help them even more. So it's just a cycle of goodness is what that is. And if you enroll now, and then we dude, probably we've got like 2 minutes left on this webinar, right? If you enroll now, you can still get the huge discount. You can save that extra $400 by enrolling right now. You can make 3 easy payments of $786, or you can save an additional $400 by making 1 payment of $1528. I mean, think about it. That is an absolute steal. Just the automated system that I just told you about, that just that by itself is part of something I sell for $17,580. I'm giving you that little chunk as a bonus here today for free. Plus, you're getting everything else. I mean, this is an absolutely unbelievable bargain for you. And of course, still, like I said, if for any reason you don't like it, take the whole 28 days, download everything, put it to work, see if you make sales. If you don't make as many as you wanted to, let me know. You can get your money back, keep everything for free. Really, really hard to beat that, right? And of course, you get the exclusive automated software, and I'm going to teach you how to build that campaign all for free as a bonus with this class. And like I said, if you don't have Infusionsoft, let us know, because my office is a legitimately certified partner office of Infusionsoft. We have the ability to set you up through our office with an Infusionsoft account and completely waive the $1,800 setup fee for you. So just boom, take $1,800 you otherwise would have had to spend, and spend it on marketing, drive traffic to a webinar, see what kind of return you get on your investment, right? So this is really a no-brainer. However, now we're nearing the end. We literally have probably 45 seconds or so. This crazy discount ends when this webinar is over. Now you've watched this entire presentation, right? You know that webinars work. You want webinars that sell your stuff, and you know this is an excellent value, especially considering the surprise bonus, right? So take advantage of this incredible discount. Take advantage of the amazing bonuses and the can't lose guarantee now. This obviously is a no-brainer investment. Plus, like I said, if you're not happy for any reason, ask me or let me know during the 28-day period. I'll give you all of your money back, and you can keep the entire thing anyway. Can't possibly get better than that, right? So go ahead, click the button somewhere on the screen here. It's probably been on here for a while now, and go ahead and enroll now. And thanks so much for attending this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing about your webinar results soon. Thanks so much.